We're good. Longer you can. We have like. Oh, sure. You just told me that's right. I can't want to. It's 24,000. I know it's retired from you guys. You're just kidding. It's- Amen.
Excuse me, as of right now, we don't have a quorum on the committee, so we are unable to start this meeting right now. Hopefully, one of the other members will arrive in the next couple minutes and we'll get started. I apologize for the delay.
See, it's going off and on, but
Yeah,
it's
you're
not.
right, it's not working.
I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Public Safety Committee. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with section 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin State Statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of the subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Trustee Nuthauer is here, Trustee Baum is here, I am here, and Trustee Pieper will be late. She is stuck in the new traffic pattern. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
A motion is made and seconded. Any comments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion to approve the minutes is passed. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Angel for some presentations, please.
You could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Riker Holmes,
I, Riker Holmes,
having been appointed to the office of Battalion Chief
having been appointed to the office of Battalion Chief
in the village of Germantown, Washington County,
in the village of Germantown, Washington County,
but have not yet entered upon duties thereof,
but have not yet entered into duties thereof,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
the Code of Ordinances of the village of Germantown,
the Code of Ordinances of the village of Germantown,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge
and will faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of said office
the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sean Schaefer. Same spot. And if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sean Schaefer,
I, Sean Schaefer,
having been appointed to the office of firefighter paramedic
having been appointed to the office of firefighter paramedic
in the village of Germantown, Washington County,
in the village of Germantown, Washington County,
but have not entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered on the duties thereof,
swear that I will support
swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
the Code of Ordinances
the Code of Ordinances
of the village of Germantown,
of the village of Germantown,
and will faithfully
and will faithfully
and impartially discharge
and impartially discharge
the duties of said office
the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask for any citizen input on tonight's agenda meeting.
All right. I'm not touching it. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. Good evening and congratulations to those gentlemen on the newly appointed to the fire department. It's wonderful. As part of tonight's meeting, Mr. Krecklow will be reviewing a couple of potential budget and policy changes that will help fund more police and fire personnel. This is of paramount importance to our village's welfare for all residents and businesses. With the recent ending of Title 42, our country is less safe. And Germantown cannot wait to go through a referendum next year, which may or may not pass in case it actually does, so that we can fund more personnel. We need to do this now, this year. Having said that, I looked at the presentation and we don't really have a full picture of what is going on with the suggestions. I'm hoping that he will put more detail into the presentation this evening, and that I'm asking for charts and spreadsheets and budgets and the capital plans for all of the departments of the village, because some of the things that he's proposing are to cut the department's funding in some other areas, and we just need to know what the effects are. And I think it's probably a good approach. We'd like to see several different views of how to do this. And I think that it's something that you can't act upon without actually having to look at those budgets, charts, and see what things we would be giving up or slowing down. I would ask that you ask him for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments about tonight's agenda?
Good evening. I'd like to congratulate those battalion officer and the firefighter that were sworn in tonight. Congratulations. Hope to see more. Not in a traffic stop, though. I sent an email earlier today regarding funding the police and fire. And I think last, I'm going to call it semester, when I was on the board of for public safety, we were challenged by Dean Walter to come up with some funding solutions for funding police and fire. And I'm all about backing police and fire. We need to be safe. The citizens need to be safe. The staff needs to be safe. There are a multitude of reasons for that. So I sent an email for the consideration of the funding from the state for fire and police. This is a legislature, it's in the legislature now. And we just received a letter from Legislative Fiscal Bureau on May 1st. And there is, under the proposal, there's about $176 million that would supplement county and municipal aid. So I think that should be taken into consideration before we dig into our own pockets. This is going to be discussed. So many of the municipalities are in favor of this. And while you could argue the point that it is not passed yet, since it is in front of the legislature, I think the only detail would be perhaps the calculation. So I'd like that to be taken into consideration as I figured it out, my math. The village of Germantown currently gets about 220,000. They're looking at an additional 498,000. So 700,000 plus dollars just for the village of Germantown to be in the fund only for public safety. So I'd like that to be considered, and I would caution the board, Public Safety Board, that once again, we don't have the 2022 audit completed yet. And this state legislature will be going through in June, July for their biannual budget meeting. So we should know about this soon, and it would be in time for the next fiscal year. So that's what I'd like you to consider. And also let it be known that we will be covering in the GGF meeting, Police Department non-represented employee salaries. So we should hopefully get a boost there.
Thank you. Could
Thank you.
Could you do us a favor and tell us who you are?
I'm Jan Miller. I live in Windsong Circles. W151 and 10297. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Germantown.
Is there anybody else for public comment this evening?
Well, I don't know how to follow that. Scott Effley, W159 N10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. Basically reinforcing what the other two people spoke about. We have an opportunity, you guys have an opportunity tonight. I know we're looking into a lot of things for funding, but we can do some funding right now. Trustee Miller's put in a lot of time on this. Mr. Krekel has, Matt has, I've sat in on meetings. There simply is a way that we can fund some police and fire now and then look in the other ways inside the budget or referendum to go, but we can give them help now. And that's what the presentation you're going to hear. You've heard this presentation before. It was actually presented to the village board over a year ago, but at the time, apparently it wasn't timely, and now I think it is. There is a way without hurting this village or touching budgets to fund 2 police officers, a squad car, and 3 firefighters. So Mr. Krekel has prepared a presentation for you, and this will work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment tonight? Being there none, we'll continue on with the reports this evening. Police Department monthly report.
Thank you. In addition to the monthly report that was presented, just a couple items I'd like to touch on. Sunday, April 23rd, we did have a SWAT call out in the Vienna Court apartment complexes. The caller was reporting domestic disturbance that was received by Washington County and transferred to us. The call was disconnected. Upon call back, a male subject stated there was no emergency. We still responded to investigate. Upon arrival, officers were able to locate the address and talk to who they believed was the caller. They were not allowed in the house. They were speaking through the doorway. The caller said everything was okay. At some point during the contact, officers heard what was believed to be a firearm being loaded or a round being chambered. One of the officers that was present at the time has a great deal of military experience and was certain that's what he heard. We were still unable to make contact. At some point, we did call out the Washington County SWAT unit as a metro unit, which Germantown Police Department is a part of. We had negotiators on scene. We were assisted by the city of Milwaukee with a Hmong translator. That went on for almost 2 hours with them refusing to exit the residence. Long story short, at the end of the day, we did decide to leave without taking any police action. We felt it didn't rise to the level that we were going to try to make an entry. That was discussions with our team with Washington County. So there was no police action taken. And that was kind of the resolution of that SWAT call. The last thing I would like to note, Police Week started last week. That's where we recognize officers that have fallen, given their life and sacrifice for their communities. We will have a ceremony May 17th at the Washington County Fair Park Pavilion. That's the first time, I believe, in 3 years that we will have that ceremony. We used to have that every year. Everyone is invited to attend. We will have members of our honor guard there, as well as members of the honor guard from Washington County, Hartford, and the city of West Bend. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Snow. Any questions for Chief Snow about the monthly report? Jolene? Sorry, Trustee Peep?
It's all right. You can
Okay.
call me Jolene.
Okay.
Just wondering how it's going with the road closures for the police officers in the village. I know today is the first day that I experienced heavy congestion and traffic in Germantown, almost like Milwaukee. So if I have that hard time getting around, I'm curious how the police officers are doing.
So today was the first time that they closed the eastbound on County Line, and I thought that was going to be problematic, and it is, but it did not cause the issues that I thought that it might. Again, it still could. You're right. It's very congested. We had officers, area squads down in that area, just trying to do what they could to make sure that traffic is moving smoothly. The worst part is what we kind of anticipated, those squads that are going east and they get to where they can't go anymore and they're just doing a U-turn there. But so far, no accidents. I don't know if I should have said that out loud, but
Yeah, it's only day one.
yeah, right.
But Maple Road, is that an issue to get to Walmart for all the calls?
Well, it's certainly not ideal, but I think officers, because they're aware of it, just are taking a different route and they haven't had any issues with it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? Moving on, Chief Delane, the Fire Department monthly report, please.
Fire Department monthly report is in your packet. Just a couple other additional details. We have found some issues in our training tower at the fire station. Namely, 2 of the floors have holes in them due to rust, and one has a support member that's broken out of it. I have been in contact with the tower company. They're supposed to be sending out an engineer soon to check the condition of it. So right now it's not being used for any fire training, live fire training. We are still using some areas of it for other type training. Besides that, I did have 2 other things, but they have slipped my mind. So when I think of them again, I'll bring them back up.
It's difficult for us all to get old. Overtime reports are in the packets. Any comments about overtime tonight?
Nothing that's any different than we've been experiencing over the course of the last year. Just graduated 2 officers from the academy last week. So as soon as we get them through field training, we expect our numbers to go down. The field training process is 15 weeks if everything goes as planned.
For the fire department, we are back up to our full staffing. However, we do have 2 people who are on light duty right now. One that would be long-term light duty, and another one to be a short-term. So we should be in better shape here shortly.
Thank you both. No policy updates for either police or fire tonight? Thank you. Now I'd like to move to the alternatives for funding additional public safety positions. Administrator Kreckler.
All right, hello. And actually, you should have a hard copy of a PowerPoint presentation, a brief one that I put together. And for those in the audience, Matthew Uselding, the interim finance director, has some additional hard copies as well. So now I'll go through this fairly quickly and then be happy to, and there's some things that I'll add as this was prepared a couple of weeks ago, and there is some new information that's come out. First of all, we should talk about the cost for the public safety positions that we've discussed over the past couple of years now, needed within the police and fire departments, 4 police officers and 12 firefighters for a total cost of a little bit under $1.6 million per year. And that's, one thing to point out as we look at potential funding sources, since that's an ongoing cost, we need an ongoing source of either revenues or other expenditure reductions to meet that. So, for example, the capital budget wouldn't be a place that we could look to fund these positions because those are typically one-time expenses that we wouldn't do on an annual basis. So the big exception to that is the paving program, where we spend $1.5 million a year. Now that's bonded, so again, we couldn't use that for to fund positions. So we would need to look at either additional revenues or reductions in our operating budget. Moving on to some of the potential budget adjustments, and this is the 3rd slide that you have. So there's a few things that we've looked at in the past that are alternatives moving forward. One in particular is to shift the public fire protection fee to the utility bill. That's something that the village board discussed at length 2 budgets ago. And just as a refresher, or for those who who may not be familiar with the issue, we, the village, the general fund from the village is required by the Public Service Commission to pay the water utility the cost for basically maintaining water infrastructure that's necessary, including fire hydrants and the additional pressure for fire responses. So this is not related to fire staff or fire trucks or the fire station itself, but solely to the water infrastructure that's in place that is utilized to respond to fires in businesses or residential households. And villages have two options for how we pay for that. The amount that the general fund is currently paying the water utility is $537,000 out of the property tax levy, plus about another $65,000 or $70,000 that's already on the quarterly utility bills. The village board could make a decision to move the remaining $537,000 from the property tax levy to the utility bills. If the village board did that, it would free up $537,000 in levy that could be used for other purposes, such as funding police or firefighters. So that is an option that the village board would have available to fund those positions. Now, it would result in an increase in what folks see on their quarterly utility bills. It's not a large increase. That's kind of a loaded word. What's large to one person may not be a large increase to somebody else. But we're talking in the range of, $6 to $12 per quarter that people would see in addition on their utility bills. So that's one option that's available as a way to fund the police and a portion of the police officers and firefighters. And as mentioned by one of the commenters earlier this evening, that's something that the village board could do at any time. There is an approval process that has to go through the PSC, but it's a fairly quick process, and it's something that could be potentially implemented if the village board chose during 2023. A second option that I have listed here is another basically shift of costs. And that would be to shift the cost of the crack filling and seal coating program that the village funds to a wheel tax or a vehicle registration fee. The village spends about $350,000 per year on crack filling and seal coating. And currently that's funded out of the property tax levy. It's in the highways department budget. And that's important, that program, to maintain the length of service of our road system. And it helps to reduce capital costs and having to issue debt to replace roads when they wear out. The roads last longer with a effective crack filling and seal coating program. One option that some municipalities have pursued for that type of a program is a wheel tax. And the way that works is that the village does have, under state statute, the authority to adopt an additional, under statute, it's called a vehicle registration fee, that would be added by the State Department of Transportation to the bill that people pay each year when they renew their licenses, the tags on your car. This would be we haven't gone through a thorough analysis of what the dollar amount would, or for doing that, but probably in the $15 to $20 range per year for residents to when they're renewing their licenses, that would pay in addition here. That's also something that the village board can implement without any external action. It's under state statute, you do have the authority to do that. It would require changing an ordinance and then informing the State Department of Transportation that this was being implemented. There would be a lag time of probably 6 months between when it was adopted and when it was implemented. But again, something that could be done on a fairly rapid basis. The third item I have listed here is the levy limit carryover. The past few years, the village board has been very prudent with the use of property tax dollars and has not increased the property tax levy the full amount that you were authorized to under levy limits. When you do, that means that you do have the capacity, the ability to go back and now increase that authority still remains. So you could increase the property tax levy in next year's budget by an additional $100,000, basically catching up to what you've forgone over the past couple of years. So that's another source of funding that could be available. And I'd like to add to this list something that has been a more recent development here over the past couple of weeks. It does seem pretty clear that, or pretty likely that the state will increase shared revenue to municipalities. The state Republican caucus has released an initial draft of a bill that the legislature is now considering that's going through committee that would designate a portion of state sales tax collections to be shared with local governments, counties, villages, cities, towns, et cetera. And it is a pretty significant dollar amount that they've been considering. The governor has also stated that he's supportive of that type of revenue sharing and increasing the aid from the state government to local governments. But he is not in agreement with some of the specifics, and more specifically, some of the strings or the requirements that the Republican version of the bill has attached to it. And he's indicated that he's opposed to those and would veto the bill because of those. There is also disagreement on the calculation and how the money would be distributed. And that's one of the key factors when you're looking at what the village of Germantown would actually receive. I've been participating in several roundtables that the League of Municipalities has been running on this issue to try to keep administrators and elected officials apprised of how those negotiations and discussions are going. And it's clear in those discussions that some municipalities are not happy with the way that the funds are being distributed. I'll give you an example. The city of Eau Claire has a very small increase, about 10% in the Legislative Fiscal Bureau's initial review of a shared revenue. While on the other hand, Germantown is under that initial draft, one of the higher recipients with an increase of over 200%. So obviously there's a lot of discussions going on among the legislatures about how this is ultimately going to break out. So it's we could receive anywhere from $50,000 or $60,000 increase to $490,000 increase. So there's a wide range that we'll see shake out. The other question with that is when that would take effect. The state operates on a biennial budget. I mean, so they're doing 2 years at a time, and their fiscal year begins on July 1st and runs through June 30th. So the bill that's being considered right now is actually not part of the state budget itself. It's being considered separately. So we should have more information and more answers in the next few weeks, I believe. But then we'll have to determine which of the fiscal years the state is going to fund that. Is it going to be in the first fiscal year that runs from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024? Or is it in the second fiscal year that runs from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025? If it's the second year, then we would not see the full effect of this until our 2025 budget. So that's another consideration when we're looking at that state money, is when does it become available to the village? So there are several options there. The three that I have on the PowerPoint here add up to about $1 million. And potentially there is another anywhere from, like I said, 60,000 to 490,000 from the state that could be coming. In order to make up the difference, we would have to look at all other things being equal, look at other adjustments to our budget. And I put in some information on the final slide here in the presentation of what that might look like. So let's say that we had to make $600,000 worth of budget adjustments. Well, if we went to cut other departmental budgets, assuming that we wouldn't cut public safety departments because we're increasing them, so we wouldn't, for obvious reasons, and look at reducing them, that would be a 6.1% reduction to all departments except for the public safety departments. And that's something, it's a significant impact, and I can't tell you here today what the programmatic results of that would be, but I would require staff reductions, and there would be service level impacts from that. However, I would also say that about half of those reductions would come from Public Works. And that, again, is another department that already is challenged when it comes to resources available. And there are some of the larger dollar amounts that are funded in Public Works are things that we're not likely to really be able to look at cutting. Garbage and recycling collection, for example, is a big chunk of that. Snow plowing, the mowing, the support for programs that take place in the parks. Those are all things that that come out of that budget that it may not be feasible, or that may not be an area that the village board would want to take those types of in-depth cuts. If we exempted Public Works from those reductions, then it would mean about a 12.1% reduction in budgets for all non-public safety, non-Public Works departments. And again, that would be pretty deep and pretty significant. And then you start getting into questions or issues. For example, the library. The library budget might be something to look at. However, we're currently funding our library at the minimum level that that we can and still continue to receive funds from the county. So if we were to reduce the library budget, we would not only reduce the village side, but it would also reduce the money that we're getting from the county. So those cuts would be that much more difficult. There's also programs like the rec programs where many of those are offset by revenue. So we may not be able to achieve the level of reductions that we're looking at there. So the ability to reduce when we start talking about 12% level cuts, it can be, there can be you may end up with very few options about what we actually are able to do to cut the budget to that level. So those are not real good options that we have available to us. And I guess where that leads is the other option that's available to the village is a referendum. And that is something that the next, well, and there was a special election that was scheduled for July. That's very quickly approaching us. However, the next real opportunity to be able to have this on a ballot for an election and be able to get information out would be the April of 2024 election. So that is something, if the village board is interested, the community is interested in considering that, we would want to start planning for that within the next few months here to be able to determine if we're going to have a referendum, what the referendum specifically would be requesting, and then how we want to move forward in informing the public about what the referendum is all about. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Administrator Crickle? Trustee Nuthow.
I'm going to help you with the pronunciation.
Oh, Bill.
Just think of night rider. That's the easiest way to do it. That's how.
Thank you.
Night rider is the easiest way.
40 minutes, and that's the first correction. I'm doing pretty good for my first time. I appreciate that.
You know, when I look at, first of all, I certainly agree that we need to improve policy. I certainly agree we need to increase public safety. The difficulty is when you're in the middle of a budget cycle, if we're trying to do something for this year and then maybe have a referendum next year for the future, you're again almost halfway through that year before you're starting it. But when I appreciate the budget adjustments that you have there, the shifting of the protection fee to the utility bill, I know we went around with that. Every time we touch that utility bill, we bring out crowds of people, and this would certainly do that. That cost is significant enough. I personally don't like the wheel tax. I hate to hear the word tax, and I don't know how many communities do have a wheel tax. I know some do, but I really do hate to hear the word wheel tax. We use that word tax around here more than we probably should. The other thing is the levy limit carryover. And, you know, I agree when you talk about budget cuts, right, you can't take out a public safety. You know, the highway department is pretty well set, although, you know, maybe they have to push back the purchase of some machinery or whatever and you know, go a year longer or two, but it's still going to, it always catches up with you, and then we're going to get hit. And to say everybody's got to cut 10% or whatever, I've never seen that as being a fair issue. Depending on what their budget dollar amount is, you almost have to go individually. So it's, you know, I think this is something to really think about and dwell about. As far as the legislature coming up with the money for, you know, communities, from what I'm hearing, that's going to be a long process. And the city of Milwaukee, not the city of Milwaukee, but the Milwaukee school system, public school system right now is putting up the biggest objection. And I'm not going to get into my political raving or ranting on the governor, but you know which way that's going to turn out. So that's really a difficult one. While they all say we all need to catch up, it's been years, it's still going to be a trick to pull that off. And like you said, in what year is that going to really help us? So we're kind of caught right now with some what ifs. So, you know, I think there's some good things here. There might be other alternatives that we can look at. I mean, can everybody look at their own budgets and say, yeah, I can get along without this or this or this, but that's just going to affect this year if we want to do that. And certainly there is a need to get this going as soon as possible, but I do agree somewhere down the road, I think when you're talking about an increase of this magnitude, you do have to have a referendum and see what the people were thinking. I would hope they would support it, because anybody I talk to, everybody's saying, you know, we need, not that the service they're getting right now is poor, but they realize that crime isn't going down and fire and rescue calls aren't going down. I've helped up your list a little bit this year a couple of times. So, I mean, we do need to do something. It's just, I think right now it's what and when. I appreciate the info, Steve.
Thank you, Trustee Nightrider. Trustee Baum.
So, the shift from public fire protection fee to the utility bill, you're taking that off of the tax roll and putting it onto the utility bill. We just went through increasing the water utility by 83%. And now this proposal is going to raise that again. So that's one problem that I have with that. Second problem is I don't have a water bill. I'm out in the country. So you're now taking this off of my taxes. So I'm not going to have to pay for any of this. So go ahead and shift it to those that are on the utility service, because I'm not going to pay a dime. I think that is going to be a troublesome sale for the residents after coming off of this 83% increase.
Well, and I can say that's why, that's why the village board, I think 2 years ago, did not transfer that onto the utility bill because of the significant increase in the water bills to begin with. And,
Right.
and the issue with that. Just to clarify, for those people who are not, who do not receive water from the village, your property tax, the property tax bills would not go down. So what we would do is we would continue to collect that $537,000 on the property tax bills. Now, instead of using it to pay for the public fire protection fee, it would be used to pay for public safety positions.
Sure, but I'm no longer paying for the water.
But well, yeah, right. Now
Yeah.
you're no longer, right now, as a property taxpayer, you're paying for the hydrants and the pressure capacity and all of that.
Through my taxes.
Through your taxes.
Yes.
So you would no longer be paying for that
Right.
for your taxes.
So the whole northern part of the village who's on wells and septics would not be contributing towards this. Only the people on the southern end. That is going to be a hard sell for residents, that they don't have to pay for it. Why do we? So just something to consider. Crack filling in the wheel tax. Like Trustee Nyrider, I got a problem with anything that's called a tax. It's a tax. Let's just increase our taxes. If that's what we gotta do, that's what we gotta do. Let's just find a solution to raise our taxes if we have to do it. I'm fine with that. I've been pushing to raise taxes for years. It's gonna be a problem. The levy carryover, or let me drop down to the additional budget adjustments of the 16.5% or the 8.25%. I've been around long enough that I went through the recession here and we had to cut 10% out of everybody's budget, and the cutting of the budget was eliminating positions. That is the majority of what we did to cut that budget by 10%. We're at a point where we need everybody we have. We can't cut positions. I don't see where we're going to cut this kind of $800,000 out of our budget. I'm happy to, open-minded to watch and see what everybody suggests, but I think that's going to be a challenge. And the levy limit carryover of $100,000, from my standpoint, you're just taking out of our left pocket and put in our right pocket. So it's just a shift of money. Is that? Yeah, Robin Peter Pitbull. And as far as the new information we have from the state, it's a crapshoot. It's a question mark. It's a big question mark. What are we gonna have? What are we gonna do? I have a problem doing anything tonight based on the information I have without information on what the state is gonna do. And when are we supposed to find out exactly what we're gonna do from the state? Anytime soon, or is this gonna be months, years away?
Well, hopefully it'll be relatively soon. It's hard to predict, and Trustee Nyrider is correct. There have been some issues. I've heard of the Milwaukee Public Schools issues as well. But I in the last League of Municipalities roundtable, they said that the governor's staff and the legislative staff were talking on a regular basis, and that their hope was to have, and the legislature is moving the bill through committee, which means that there will be a vote on it, I think, within the next few weeks. And, hopefully they're able to resolve those issues and it doesn't go through a veto process or anything like that. But it's hard to predict that with the state.
Yeah, so I'm open-minded to find a way to do this. These suggestions, I think there's troubles with those. So if there's other ideas that we have, let's bring them forward and let's find a way to get these guys the staffing they need. Thank you.
Thank you.
They said everything I was even possibly going to say, so.
Just a couple questions about the cost estimates. Are these all-in estimates for personnel, including benefits
Yes.
and equipment?
Yes.
12 new firefighters, are we gonna need a new building?
That is not included, not immediately, but we would at some point in the foreseeable future. That would have to go into our capital planning process.
And do we have the trucks for 12 additional firefighters at this moment in time?
We do have the trucks for it.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Chairperson, would we be able to put this on the budget or on the agenda for next meeting, just to follow up with any
Yes,
new
yeah.
suggestions and everything?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, sergeant position.
Thank you. When I was promoted to chief, I had presented a plan to revise the command structure, bring sergeants back onto the road act as road supervisors. We are getting very young. Moving forward, there are likelihoods that we could have an entire shift made up of probationary officers, that is officers with under a year and a half of experience. It's critical that we have supervisors on the road to supervise these young officers. I noted here that moving this patrol officer to a sergeant, the cost would be $7,800 per year. Recently, an officer did not make the field training process. We're going to have several months of unused officer salary that would certainly cover that. Moving forward, I talked to the administrator. We're confident we can cover that cost. Just consider overtime alone, what our officers are making in overtime compared to what our supervisors make because of what we're implementing with our command staff. There is an expectation that they move their shifts to cover vacancies, so they do not see that same type of overtime that the officers see. We have an eligibility list in place with one person left on that eligibility list. It is only good through July 1st. This officer has done an outstanding job for us. He's experienced. He's done everything we've asked of him, and he's certainly ready for this position. So I am requesting that we make an additional sergeant's position.
Thank you. Committee, any questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to create the sergeant position using funds from the salary of the big officer position as per.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Open for discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to item B, MyFest, Dutchstadt Heritage Foundation, temporary Class B fermented malt beverage, wine, and picnic license.
Make a motion to approve the MyFest temporary B picnic license as presented.
Second.
Committee, any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item C, Taste of Germantown, Kiwanis of Germantown, temporary Class B fermented malt beverage and wine picnic license.
I make a motion to approve new business item C for the Taste of Germantown Class B license.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any comments or discussions for item C? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item D, Youth Faith Spaghetti Dinner Raffle Silent Auction, Faith Lutheran Church, temporary Class B fermented malt beverage picnic license.
Make a motion to approve new business item D for Youth of Faith Spaghetti Dinner Raffle and Silent Auction
Second.
Class B license.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item E, ordinance creating section 7.146 of the municipal code for the village of Germantown relating to the impoundment of vehicles used in certain reckless driving offenses. Village attorney.
Sure, just very quick. This is something that the legislature just recently passed. In fact, it was the first act that they passed this year in this session. It is primarily designed to help the folks in Milwaukee deal with the reckless driving problems that they have. In talking with my colleagues kind of throughout the area, and I didn't actually talk to Chief, although I suspect his answer is probably the same as most of the suburban communities, that we're not seeing too much of an issue with those types of violations yet. But obviously there's some concern that it may continue to creep as they kind of continue. So this just gives us another tool in the arsenal should we need it at some point. So.
Thank you. Trustee Peeper.
Just a question for Chief Snow. So if this does start coming to Germantown and we're impounding a lot of vehicles, do we have space to hold these impounded vehicles, or where would they be held?
More than likely, they'd be held by Homer's Towing.
Okay, so they would take care of it, store it, and they just, all right. I have no issues with this. I make a motion to approve new business item E for changing or creating a section in the municipal code regarding the impoundment of vehicles.
I'll second it.
A motion has been made and seconded. Committee, any comments or discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is item F, turnout gear purchase.
For 2023, I had budgeted $50,000 for a fuel station to be added to our fire station with the movement of public works across town and the low fuel mileage that our vehicle get. It determined to be pretty expensive to drive all the way to Donjas Bay and Wasaki to get fuel. However, it has become more of a need this year as some of our turnout gear has been expiring, that we have a greater need for turnout gear. I would like to use the $50,000 that I had earmarked for a fueling station to be put towards fire gear.
Make a motion to approve new business item F for turnout gear purchase. And the money is being taken from remind me again?
It was from borrowing, capital borrowing.
But you were taking it from
Fuel station.
fuel station and putting it towards new gear.
Correct.
Motion has been made. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion has been made and seconded. Open for discussion. Trustee Baum.
Chief, how many sets do we need? Is this replacing everybody?
No, this would not replace everybody. It would replace everybody's gear who expires at the end of this year. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. And also have some extra sets of gear for when people become contaminated. Or we get new people on that we have adequate gear for them. We typically purchase 3 to 4 sets of gear every year. But in 2013, we made a full department purchase.
Yeah.
And those are coming up right now.
And how many, what are we talking, $3,400 divided by $50,000?
Correct.
$14, $15 sets? How many
Yes.
staff, this buys 15 sets and you're looking for 12 more people? So we're gonna have to double this to get the next, if we get all the staff on board?
It should not have to be doubled because I did mention that I am looking for some extra sets too, in addition to the 2 or 3 that we buy every year.
Okay.
I'm looking to basically replace the remaining ones and get extras.
And what do we do with the used gear?
There's a number of different things we do with them. Some of them go to our Explorer program for the youth. Some of them get donated. They cannot be used in the United States once they're out of date. A lot of Central American companies or departments will use them though. We have a program set up with St. Mary's Church in Menominee Falls that takes them and brings them down to, I believe the last place was Honduras, and then trains them on how to use it.
Okay. All right, that's all I got.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I think I seconded
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. Any other comments, concerns, committee? We'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Vote is unanimous. Item G, Pro Phoenix training.
Thank you. This was in response to our recent upgrade of our Pro Phoenix operating system. And we learned that's because it had been so long since the last upgrade, there were several changes to many of the modules that the officers had used. Found that it was going to be very beneficial to have Pro Phoenix send in some people to train us, to train some of our people to be trainers. Lieutenant McCulloch was able to obtain a state grant from the DOG to cover the cost of the training. So it was not budgeted, but a state grant will cover the cost.
Make a motion to approve new business item G for Pro Phoenix training.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Item is open for discussion. Committee? Trustee Pieper?
I just wanted to say I am very impressed with how much you find grants and grant money to cover a lot of these things. Very rarely do you come forward with something that you need that you don't say, oh, but it's covered by a grant. And I appreciate you looking for those grants, applying for the grants and being so proactive about that.
Thank you. And Lieutenant McCulloch has done an outstanding job of keeping on top of that, and just anything he can find, he's on it. So thank you.
Other comments, questions, concern? We'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is adjournment. The next meeting will be June 5th at 6 PM. That's it for tonight. Thank you.